Good morning. What a good way to start with Unity spamming errors in the console. I think it's something about this multiply by 2 I have here that broke it. Not 100% certain. Requested size is too large. I wonder what size of render texture was requesting. That's weird. Buffer.width. I guess maybe I was multiplying the buffer.width by 2 each time when I should be multiplying just the canvas width by 2 each time. So what I was doing there, okay, so I actually set up a basic deferred renderer that doesn't actually use any advanced features. So it doesn't use a depth buffer, which isn't available on some mobile phones, and it renders to an alpha red green blue 32 G buffer, so it can basically run on any platform because it doesn't require any texture formats like half or float. So then I've actually done this a whole bunch before. I wrote a packing function that packs all the data I need and unpacks it, and so I do my own depth encoding. So it just has a 16-bit depth buffer for the deferred depth buffer, but the whole idea is like a cartoon render pipeline. So this is what I want to support. Basically, cartoon by there's no PBR. There's just diffuse coloring. There's no specular reflection. You literally just have objects be a color, and there is lighting though. It is going to be cartoon, so I'm planning to have 2 lighting modes. One is like regular dot product lighting that has sort of smooth shading across faces, but I think I'm going to go with low poly lighting. I think everything is going to have low poly lighting. There's going to be no smooth shading on faces. And then the other mode for the pipeline is going to be completely flat shading, which is basically where I don't know how to describe it. It's like anime type shading. I think a few games have done it where you basically have a sharp like line between the light and the shadow behind it. So I set that up, and a lot of what I messed with was doing my own depth encoding. So originally I just did linear depth, and so what these weird gradients are actually visualizing is this is visualizing the world position being reprojected from the depth that I'm storing in the G buffer here. And then, so this is actually something I struggled with when I was doing the universal render pipeline, is I could not figure out how to convert planar depth to world depth. And I don't know how I didn't think about it before. I think I definitely could have done this in the universal render pipeline, but it was way easier for me to think about doing it separately here and isolating the issue. But so basically planar depth is dot product of the position relative to the camera with the camera's world space forward direction. So this, for anyone who doesn't know, this is how you do depth to a plane, and this is our normal of our plane, which is the camera forward position. And but then, so this is actually how you get the depth when you're doing post effects or whatever in the Universal or HD render pipeline. And I couldn't figure out how to go back from the planar depth. I'm an idiot. It should have been obvious. You dot product the view dir and the world space camera position and divide by that. It's actually like kind of obvious, because that's what the inverse of doing. This depth has basically the view direction built into it by having the world position. Anyways, I basically got the basics set up yesterday, and just like, not just set them up, but made sure everything worked. So I made sure I got this proper world space depth, and I could get world position back. But obviously what I found is that I can actually make this bigger. Okay, so I found that when you have a 16-bit depth buffer and then you have a view distance of like 10,000, you basically have like the precision of the world sampling is like what's so 16 bits unsigned can fit like 65k. What's 65k divided by 10? Like 6.5? Or wait, no, it's actually 10,000 divided by 65k. Let's bring up our calculator. Alright, so that's the precision of our world sampling. So basically, with that, our depth is being quantized to that precision, and what you can end up seeing is that we no longer have smooth gradients. It's in these bars where the depth is being quantized. And so obviously, you can just make your view distance way smaller. But then, that effect still shows up when you have like small and large scales. Like sometimes you want like, or there's a bunch of games where you want like 5,000 view distance, and having these bars is ridiculous. But one of the things you can notice is that when you go far away like this, the distance naturally gets smaller. Basically, like, this distribution of depth precision is kind of off when you're doing linear encoding like this. What ends up happening is that the majority of what you see and what's highest quality is closest to you. Like obviously, when things get farther away, they get smaller, they have less detail. But when you're doing linear encoding, this far away is still using a huge amount of precision in the depth buffer. So that's where log scale depth encoding comes into. And then you can also do this for encoding large scale values like in light maps. So I found a value of 100 to be pretty good. This basically feeds, does exactly that. It encodes the depth in a log scale, and then you decode that with exponent, because that's the inverse of log. And now you can get absolutely massive scales. The issue is though, at huge scales like 50,000, I actually figured out I think this is actually the limit for Unity's internal depth buffer. So this is like, this blank spot here is like, this is the cube that's actually being used to do the deferred post-processing. And for whatever reason, when you put the scale that big, I think it's, hold on. It's because of this right here. I think if I do one, that might fix it. Yeah, okay. Never mind, so I actually can fix that. It's just basically the internal cube mesh used to do part of the deferred rendering. It's too far away or too close to the camera's clip plane. See, this is really complicated because as far as I'm aware, this should work. Divided by square root 3 is divided by the max corner extent of the cube. And then this should be able to go multiplied by 2 times. But I guess when the depth precision gets so strained, that's what happens. Anyways, this reprojecting the world position. Oh yeah, and then even if you have these lines on like 100,000. Oh, okay, never mind. So I guess this is constantly going to be a problem. Let me think about this for a second. 1 divided by 3. Square root of 3 is like 1.7 times the camera far clip plane, which should be like 10,000. I think it's probably just like precision issues at this point with the GPU floating points. I could try doing halfway. But yeah, that might cause issues when... I'm actually curious about this. Curious. Do I want to make this... What are the limits of depth precision? Okay, so here we have it showing up a little bit. I'm just wondering if there's a way to dynamically scale this based off the far clip plane. Like, as this far clip plane value goes up, I reduce this scalar. But then I'm wondering, like, what do I actually... What if I just do square root? I actually have a theory. What if I put the far clip plane in the square root? I have a theory that that's actually what is going on here. And square root, oh wait, that did not work. So I was thinking that if it was too low a value, square root would actually raise it. But maybe not. Huh. Yeah, no, this should totally work, because it should end up being about 1,000. Oh, wait, it's doing divided by that. Alright, so let's just try square root far clip plane. Okay, so this is when I feel like this might not be too much of an issue when you have a very small range between near and far. Square root will actually push it up. Oh yeah, this is amazing. Okay, so this is this fully works. So this is insane. 1 million view distance. I wonder if I should do near versus far encoding, similar to how the depth buffer actually does. I feel like that doesn't work that well when you do a large scale difference between like 0.03, because then it would be 0.03 or 10,000 divided by 0.03. I feel like log scale encoding is actually better then. Alright, so now 2 divided by that times the far clip plane. Okay. So I'm going to limit this to the far clip plane. So then at the small scales, this should clamp it. So we'll be able to get this large scale working just like it does, but then at small scale, it'll clamp it. What is that? So I have a feeling the rendering just like yeah, okay, it's got issues at really small differences between clipping planes, but that is all good. I'm really happy with the dynamically scaling. Actually, I have one issue I think with this. It uses that depth to compare the UI and some of this stuff, so the UI will probably disappear at the wrong distance. Actually, interesting. Square root of 10. Square root of 10 is like 2, isn't it? Square root. Yeah, so like 3.65. Choosing the minimum value of these 10, 3.65. It's going to choose 3.65. Is it not rendering the depth? Test always. It should be writing depth, I think. But if it was writing depth, then... So what we're doing here is we're doing the deferred rendering, and then after the deferred rendering, lighting is processed from the gbuffer. Then we do the UI and Unity's built-in renders, because these don't do any sort of lighting or anything. So we just sort of composite them on top. The issue is that this means they don't get depth testing. Or they do, but it's against the wrong depth. It's against this cube. But what doesn't make sense is if it is against this cube, I could have sworn that these had depth testing. But maybe not. World space. But if it had depth testing, it would be getting removed. Try removing this and just doing set amounts. I want to understand what's happening if what I think isn't happening. So what I'm trying to do here is to get this text to disappear when it's a certain length of the camera, because the depth being written should be in front of this. Hold on, maybe I have to do Z right on. No. And see, I know Z right is on because if I take this clip away, it doesn't write the depth and the background doesn't get drawn. So, so maybe something about this, it's not doing depth testing. Let me try with no skybox and a solid color. I have a theory that maybe it's not clearing stuff correctly. No, it is. Maybe this just doesn't have depth testing. I'm really confused. So if I make this scale small enough, it just shouldn't display. But then it doesn't write depth. I'm really confused. So is it just not writing depth here? See, I used to actually have I actually tested having a output depth here. And I wonder if, since I removed that, it's not writing its own depth. Unity does this really bad thing sometimes where it doesn't, like, I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't recompile shaders when you change certain things. Can't remember what you do. I think you do reset. and compile. I probably am just going to try writing to frag depth again. And then I'm just going to pass the vertex depth. Huh, that is not working. So what if we pass the planar depth? Is it just not writing depth for some reason? Hold on. Unity shader not writing depth. I wonder if, like, this depth buffer isn't being cleared or something, or is being cleared but at the wrong time. So what this hopefully should be doing is culling objects that are behind a certain depth, but it's not doing that. It's almost like it's not outputting depth. Yeah, I actually don't think it's outputting to the depth buffer for whatever reason. I wonder if it literally has no depth buffer unless I assign a depth buffer. No, it has to have a depth buffer. nothing should be displayed when I set the depth to 0. It's not writing depth for some reason. Like, it is Z-Write on. I don't... Unity graphics.drawMesh not writing depth. If I call drawMesh now, the depth buffer is cleared. What? When I render my objects, the scene's depth is cleared before the mesh is drawn as well? What? What? Unity has some bugs that are just like, how the fuck is this a usable engine? Oh, and there's actually like a reputable guy on Twitter that has brought this up. How do I get depth testing working when drawing to a custom render target? I can draw, but not with depth. There's an overload of set render target that takes a second buffer's depth buffer, calling that with an extra feature for depth buffer. I expect to last. It did not work. Like this, same result. Oh my god, if this is actually an unfixable... Dude, the state of Unity is actually a fucking joke. And this is like from 2018, and I don't think this is fixed. So what I'm thinking is happening is that this actually doesn't have a depth buffer. But this doesn't make sense because I literally had this happening the other day where it was doing depth testing. It literally doesn't make sense. Maybe my GPU is just dying. I would actually think that if there weren't other people having this. Oh god. You won't believe what I did today. What did you do today? Ten-year internet user, I managed to get my 13-year-old Steam account. Holy fuck, dude, I'm sorry. That's huge. It's like getting your journal stolen in a way. to read from the render target. We can blit onto a render target as a blit or a full copy. You get render target identifiers for many things. Okay, how do I get the depth buffer of the screen? Render target screen with depth. I think this is similar. I think I finally know what problem I actually have. By typing all my data on scam website that was copy of Steam website, I click scam link from some social network I trusted. I even type SMS confirmation. Oh my god, man. That's crazy. So wait, active depth buffer. It still doesn't seem like it's writing depth. Wow. I wonder if it's literally just broken. Oh yeah, and I think I need to actually flip my UVs when I go to OpenGL, or everything's gonna be flipped right here. Yeah, and where's the Steam change their help? I did not use it for years. Hard to get Steam support tickets. Oh yeah, I hate how everything there's like no in-person help anymore. Actual people who can actually do stuff. Alright, well, I guess I'm literally just not gonna have a depth buffer here. I'm thinking about it. I actually don't think this matters. I actually don't think this matters if I have a depth buffer or not. It's funny because all the issues came from me thinking I have a depth buffer. But now I'm thinking, like, if I don't have a depth buffer, oh my god, this actually doesn't make sense. So like, if I don't have a depth buffer, then how is the skybox being culled behind things? It literally doesn't make sense. This actually doesn't make sense. So I'm just going to do halfway between camera near clip plane and far clip plane. The distance of the box, but like, this still doesn't make sense. If it doesn't have depth, so like, wait. If after this, I go and clear the depth, if I clear the depth here, will it render? Okay, this doesn't make sense. Wait. So, if I put a skybox now, will it render the skybox over top of everything because it doesn't have depth, the depth that's been cleared. It does. This doesn't make sense. This actually doesn't make sense. So, okay, the skybox is using depth testing from the depth buffer to check if there's anything in front of it. So let me bring up, hold on, I actually have the UI shaders here in a folder. It'll just take me a little bit to find them, but so this is the crazy thing. So this UI thing, this uses the depth buffer because it's world space. It uses the depth buffer to check if it's in front of anything, or at least it's supposed to. I should look at the shader code. Maybe I actually completely misunderstand. And then the skybox supposedly does the same thing, where it uses the depth buffer. Does draw skybox clear the depth buffer? No, because I didn't have skybox on. It like this is boggling my mind. It doesn't add up. So like, if the skybox uses depth testing and the UI uses depth testing, why does the depth testing for the skybox work and the depth testing for the UI doesn't work? The shaders may hold the answer. Alright, let's look at this. UI default, Q transparent, ignore projector, preview type train, can use spike. Stencil. Oh my god, it uses stencil? There's no way it uses stencil. Z-test, Unity GUI Z-test mode. Let's try doing Z-test equal. Oh wait, this isn't going to change the actual shader. Unity GUI Z-test mode. Where do I change this? But yeah, so it looks like alright, so if it's world space, then it's equal. So this should 100% be comparing against the depth buffer. This does not make sense. Okay, let me go look at the skybox. Is the skybox doing anything different? Cull off, Z-write off, Q-type background. Is it because the Q-type is background? Cull off, Z-write off. Z-test by default is L equal, which is on. What sort of mesh does it use? Vertex is iRay. Simply outputs the color. Oh, so then position is the output. Just does Unity object to clip position. So I guess the skybox sphere It's like very far away. This doesn't make sense. They both do the same thing of just writing, drawing to the screen, and then relying on z-testing. But then for whatever reason, the Skybox has actual z-testing applied. And the UI doesn't have z-testing applied. This doesn't make sense. And now it's concerning me because I feel like there's actually going to be some systems where z-testing is actually applied properly. Okay, you know what I should do? I should try changing my platform renderer. Okay, let's... Does this run on OpenGL ES2? I'm very curious. I have a feeling this won't work, but maybe it will because I'm not using any advanced features. Wow. Here it is rendering in OpenGL ES2. It actually seems like everything is, oh my god, it's so laggy. Hey, thanks for the follow, Cyber Parker. So that's weird. It says 1000 FPS, but it feels really bad. Yeah, so... Nope. It's working, but it still doesn't have the depth buffer. So let's try OpenGL Core. I look like Jesus, but with a better beard. Jesus programmer. Thank you. The sad fact is we don't really know what Jesus' beard looked like. Just what people said his beard looked like. So what we're looking for right now, or what is really driving me crazy, is that this skybox in the background is being clipped from these objects. So this is working properly. The skybox isn't appearing over top of the objects, and it's doing this because it has information from the depth buffer. So if we clear the depth buffer like this, you can actually see the skybox appears over top of everything. But then you'll see, even though the skybox is correctly being drawn behind things, this UI, this hello text here, is supposed to be drawn behind objects and have depth testing. But as you can see, you can just see it through the floor. It has no depth testing, which would make sense if it was consistent and the skybox didn't have depth testing. But as you can see, the skybox is being correctly rendered behind things, just like how the text should be. So this doesn't make sense. It literally doesn't make sense. It is inconsistent. So I'm switching around my graphics APIs. And seeing if maybe something will cause it to change. I'm gonna make this some bright color so it's really easy to see. So it should be disappearing at least at some point, but nope. So making it bigger makes it easier to see if it does disappear or get clipped, but nope. It just, so the thing that is very concerning about this is that this is actually okay. You can work around having UI or world space UI not having depth testing, or I could even re-implement this myself. The issue is that I feel like on some platforms this might work properly. And so then if you think that these things are actually going to be displayed and then all of a sudden on one platform they aren't displayed, that's really bad. But so far it does seem to be consistent between these platforms. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get that being consistent. I tried binding a depth render target too. I think it's literally just this draw mesh call, where I saw someone on the forum say that draw mesh for whatever reason clears the depth buffer, or something. Like I don't think it clears the depth buffer. I think it writes the wrong depth or something. I just gotta take these away now that I don't need them. All right. You Unity developers got to worry about too much. I mean, I don't think we have to worry about it. This is kind of just for messing around now. I mean, you don't need a custom render pipeline. I was saying yesterday, the ideal thing would just be going back to Unity 4 or Unity 5 when things were stable. And then you can use Unity and not complain about it because shit's stable. But it's like, people, you definitely feel, when you see all this stuff from Unreal Engine and all these other things from Amazon Lumberyard going, these are the next best engine features, and you see that Unity does have these next best engine features like ray tracing, but they're under these experimental packages like HD Render Pipeline. And like, you get sucked into messing with these things for hours from seeing these exciting presentations and stuff, but the reality is when you go to actually mess with it, you realize how experimental and how it doesn't actually carry over to actual games these days. So it is fun though. Alright, I'm gonna go get some breakfast and some water. I'll be like 2 minutes. I also thought I might put this at the bottom of my screen. I keep having to explain over and over again what I'm doing, and I thought it would be way easier if I also just put at the bottom of my screen a little thing here that says, I'm doing this right now. I'm trying to fix the depth buffer. Alright. Now the question is, what am I working on right now? So I got the depth buffer stuff working well. The shader stuff and lighting is pretty difficult. So I'm kind of, that's kind of going to be the end. What I've thought, I think I'm going to work on the property volume. So in Unity as well, there's these new post-processing volumes that let you hold data about like how the scene is displayed in specific sections of the world. So as the player goes through it, you can have stuff change. And I thought it's a great idea, and actually Unreal Engine and CryEngine have had that same volume feature for probably like, I think like 10 years now. I think Unreal Engine 3 had it, and so Unity's kind of behind in that. But I think it's a great system, so I'm copying it and doing it in my render pipeline as well. So I'm doing this thing called Cartoon Property Volume, and these are the base properties I'm going to have for the cartoon render. That's just like exposure, how strong the lighting is, and ambient, which is like the base lighting. And then I'm also going to do a custom property thing where you can assign custom properties and then read them off and use them for your own stuff, like post-processing. And that's what I'm going to focus on right now. So I'm double clicking this thing on OBS and it's not editing, and it's triggering the fuck out of me. OBS is great, but some stuff about the UI is so bad. Alright, that's actually pretty nice. New question: is brightness of object changing as we move around it? It will be eventually. Right now it actually doesn't have any lighting implemented. So in this draw gizmo selected, I'm going to be visualizing the volume. And so I actually need to decide. I think I'm just going to use scale to visualize it, but I think I'm also going to have an attenuation value, and this is basically going to be how much the weights are attenuated from the distance to the box. Weights are attenuated. This range from the volume. Man, this is a EP by Gesaffelstein and the Hacker. Probably said that really wrong, Gesaffelstein. And normally it's insanely good, but this actually sounds like, okay, that's pretty good. Parts of this literally sound like nails on a chalkboard. Not good. You know what Pep-O-G means? Yeah, I probably gotta update BTTV. I don't have a lot of new emotes. I just have old emotes. I think there's different Peepo Gs. There's Peepo, I don't know Peepo G. Oh wait, I do know Peepo G. It's the one with the glasses and the paper. Wait. I thought I had Peepo G. I should have. I swear, I have an emote of someone holding up. No, guess not. I wonder if the one I had got deleted. No, the closest thing I have to Peepo G is OIC. But then I also have Oh, I can't see. I feel like that's a really underrated emote. So now, do I use the matrix for this? I think I probably should, so... Matrix... Old gizmos.matrix... Matrix equals transform dot world to... local to world matrix... And then we draw this at identity... Yeah, I type those in. Those anime emotes are cursed. I never type in emotes. I just go to like the BTTV menu or whatever. Alright, and then we set the color. I guess I could just set the color to the exposure. I'm on mobile, I'm doing this shit by memory. Oh, that sucks. I'm gonna turn off this canvas and... Oh my god, I might just turn off everything else right now so that I can focus on this. Here we go. Here's our cartoon property volume. So we're gonna draw two cubes, one at the to show the actual volume, and then another cube to show the attenuation range. And I'm deciding if I want to if I want to do a wire cube, or if I want to stay like this. Hold on, I want to set the... Can I change just the alpha here? I can, nice. Alright. No, wait, I can't. You can't modify the return value. I thought so. Okay, so I gotta store the exposure. Reduce the alpha, I gotta do it here. Alright, that might be too dim. Let's look at draw wire cube. I feel like for a volume, it probably should be a solid cube. I'm just gonna do like 0.5 alpha or something. So now we can rotate it, do everything, scale it. draw the attenuation cube if it is bigger than 0 and if there is attenuation, so check that. And now I'm not sure what color I want to do. Oh, this is actually difficult. This is actually difficult. So the attenuation... The attenuation is going to be in world distance. But this is in scale. This is in relative object scale. So this means that I need to somehow go backwards and calculate how much this attenuation is relative to the object scale. Or maybe find some way to modify the matrix. Like, that's the thing, if I'm trying to find the object scale, I already need to go in and like access the matrix. Huh. So let me think about this. The attenuation range is like 0.1. Lossy scale is like 1. Divided by 0.1 will be wrong. If this is 0.1 and lossy scale is like 1. Yeah, so actually we want to divide by... Oh, and to multiply before dividing. And you might not even be able to divide vector 3's from what I remember. Yeah, cannot be applied to vector 3. Is there a way to do this? Unity vector 3 divide. No, there's only divide by a specific, divide by a single float. That's disappointing. Oh wait. We can turn this. No, wait, no, we can't. We have to divide by lossy scale. No, we're gonna need to do this manually. Okay, I'm gonna do a helper function for this. There has to be a way to add a custom operator. Vector3 add divide operator. Vector3 by vector3. So if there's vector3 scale, maybe there's vector3 divide. No. Huh. What should I just name general utility functions? Just utility. Alright, let's see if this works. Cannot apply multiply operand. Oh my god, can you not multiply? You need to do scale. Alright, please work. Oh, okay, I think it works. So the distance should stay 1, from the surface even when we put the scale down. Yep, that seems about right. So then even if we scale it massively on the right, it's still the proper distance and attenuation. Alright, very happy with that. So what I'm also thinking is that Unity has global volumes, but then it's like if you have a global volume, it's not a volume. It's just a global setting. So my logic is I don't need global volumes. You can just make a volume like 10,000 units big and cover your whole scene, and then it'll work as a global volume. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't work. And so the one thing I am thinking about though is if you get many volumes, I will be looping through and checking if you're in all the volumes, which could be very slow. So I'm thinking about what optimizations I could do for this. But at the end of the day, it's like you're applying post-processing and a bunch of properties to these. You shouldn't be having more than like a few thousand. And after that, optimizing if you're in these is like very difficult. It almost makes me wonder, before I actually go and I should actually plan out what is the pros and cons of doing it like this. You can do attenuation range, but everything will be a box. Well, see, that's my thing though. It's called a volume, and a volume is a 3D box. So it's like, if it's called a volume, it just makes sense to me to have it be a post-processing box. And then doing it this way, you can have attenuation where it actually sort of fades out the box as you go. Whereas with Unity's post-processing, as soon as you leave a box, it's like, boom, you're just out of the box. There's no fade out. And that's my thing, is I think, at least the way Unreal Engines works, is it has like an attenuation or fade. But then, this obviously has the issue of if you have thousands of these in your map, it's going to get slow to check through them all. So putting that in the physics engine where it's going to optimize that check is, on one hand, see, this is the thing, this could actually be a downside. So if you add thousands of these to your physics engine and then through the physics loop it's checking if your player or whoever is in thousands of these boxes, it actually bring your physics frame rate down a whole bunch. So that's why I'm almost thinking, hold on, I think someone's at my door. It's Epic Games here to tell you Unreal over Unity. Just ignore them. Oh, sorry, that was me ranting to them about blueprints. So here's the pros and cons. Man, I see a bunch of streamers some programming streamers write stuff out. Like they'll actually bring up Notepad or whatever and be like pros and cons and actually write this shit out. I actually feel like it takes longer for me to do this if I do it like this. You can just talk about it. But like the pros and cons, volume, fast, spatial hierarchy, optimization. Never do that, not productive, just code and comment, yeah. No attenuation. Less control. Potentially slower. Supports various shapes of volumes. And then manual volume checks. Pros. See, the pros are like they're both fast. Fat. Less controlled, can't choose polling speed. Polling rate. Yeah, I'm doing manual volume checks. I feel like I can't rely on the physics engine here. And potentially slowing down physics just is not, I don't like that. So I saw a thing that actually having objects in other layers are still put in the same spatial hierarchy optimization as all the other objects. So like even if you add a bunch of objects to a layer where you're like, oh, these barely interact with anything, they still in a way slow down other stuff by slowing down the rest of the spatial hierarchy. It's just that it's putting them in different layers is way faster than actually checking the collisions. Alright, and I'm gonna add, I'm actually thinking about this, how to do custom properties. So what I'm thinking of doing is literally just an array of vector 4s or colors. I was thinking of doing colors as well because you encode most of this data as color. But I actually think Unity's color encoding limits you, and doing vector 4 will mean that it just supports any 4 vector value. So I think I'm just going to do custom like that. Alright, and so then actually doing our volumes, when they're enabled, we're going to add them to a list of volumes, system.collections.generic. And then I actually think I'm going to make this static. Volumes. And so then I think, see, I'm initializing this here. Man, making it static and doing a new initializer. I can't remember. Does Unity run these when it creates a class? I think this means it'll only be initialized once. Our static variables initialized. So yeah, this will only be set once. It should, as far as I'm aware, only be set once on startup. Initialize static variable before code runs. Initialize it in a static constructor. Okay, it's called automatically before the first. Alright, nice, so this will work. So then on enable, we register our volume. And then on disable, we remove our volume. And you know what? I'm actually thinking now, does the scriptable render context happen in a different thread? Unity does scriptable render context use a different thread? Because that's the only time this could run into issues, is if it's accessing on multiple threads. Interesting. I didn't know this was an option. Was target decides to render in threading mode. So I'm assuming that it just all keeps the memory organized. If you use the built-in culling system, it already runs in multiple threads. Okay. Every instance of thread is just the word forum thread. Ah! Imagine searching for threads on Google and everything just literally gives you results for forum threads. Is render pipeline.render on a different thread? They don't even have the documentation come up when you Google this, do they? Okay, come on. Wait, why doesn't it bring up? Oh my god. Unity's documentation is so bad. Like, the search doesn't work. Like, I'm actually thinking I'm gonna need to go into the source code and just look and see. So where is the render pipeline? Oh my god. This actually doesn't make sense. Unity is a fucking disaster in terms of organization. Okay, look at this shit. To make your own custom render pipeline, you need the SRP core package, okay? So presumably, the main render pipeline class you need would then be under SRP core. So, except if we go into core RP here, there's no render pipeline. There's no render pipeline. They literally make you download a package and then it doesn't even provide anything. And then the actual code that you need to make the render pipeline isn't even documented. It's not even under their actual documentation. Oh my god, finally. Entry point, this method is the entry point. It's not compatible with the built-in render pipeline. Unity calls this method automatically. Calls this method once per frame to render the main view and once per frame for each manual call to camera.render. And Unity Editor calls this method once per frame for each scene view or game view object that is visible. Once per frame if the scene camera view is visible, and once per frame for each manual call to camera.render if you're using delegates to custom code. Use the delegates to call your custom code to define points. If you're writing custom, you can either add code here directly or call the delegates yourself. Using render pipeline to begin frame rendering, render pipeline to begin camera rendering. Here directly. Okay. Nope, yep. So this definitely runs all under Unity's main thread because they wouldn't expect you to access any of this if it wasn't under the main thread. The fact that they don't explain this to you or it's really conflicting how Unity spends all this time doing the jobs program where they basically are trying to make the engine more multi-threaded, and then when you're doing like a render pipeline, which you would think would be where a lot of performance heavy stuff that would benefit from multi-threading would be, there's absolutely zero mention of threading or jobs. It's almost like the people at Unity don't talk to each other. Which is like, that's classic programmers, but like, come on. So I don't think I'm going to do these, and I think I'm going to provide my own delegates. Automatically. No, I guess I can just, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to add these right now. While I've looked this up, I didn't know this, so. Render pipeline dot begin frame rendering. End frame rendering. When should I do the begin and end camera rendering? Like, do I do the begin camera rendering after it's set the viewport? Before it's expanded the deferred buffer? I feel like I should at least do it after the deferred buffer here. then I guess I should do it after the skybox is done. Alright, so register our volume in a static list. Access them from cartoon render pipeline. So then what I'm thinking about is I could have a different polling delay on each of these. But what I think I'm going to do is on the cartoon render pipeline asset, I'm going to add an a little option for the polling delay. Float property volume polling. So by default, I think I'll do like half a second or something, because this does not need to react quickly. Maybe I'll do it pretty high to begin. And I wonder if I should do it in render here, or if I should create a coroutine. I almost feel like doing it in render here, because if it's not rendering, then I don't need to pull them anyways. But then at the same time, doing it during rendering might not be a good idea when we can just use coroutines. I think I'm just going to use coroutines. If our render call is being called anyways, we could just easily check this poll rate. And we're going to need to pull it for each of the cameras. Oh, wait. This is actually kind of complicated. Okay. So we probably... When we just render a camera here... Okay, I actually found an issue with these. So let's say you're just rendering a camera alone, like how you would call just camera.render in Unity. Then you might not actually provide these post-processing values. Like, should I just calculate the new pull position? This is actually conflicting. So it's like I'm just given each of these cameras, but I'm actually going to need to track properties between each of these cameras, which is like, should I add... I almost feel like I should make a component just for storing these properties and put them on each camera so I can track them over time. I'm also just considering looping through and checking like in maybe for the render camera, I'll actually input the base values like exposure and ambient. So when you're calling camera.render yourself, you can set the exposure and things like that and not leave it up to the post-processing volume. And then in here is where I actually calculate each camera's. So then it only calculates the cameras that are being rendered by the base render, like cameras that are enabled, and then cameras that you're rendering yourself that are disabled, you can do custom properties. I think that's the way to do it. But then I'm still going to need to track the properties and the pull times between cameras, which makes me think adding a component, because so this is conflicting. I could look up each camera in like a sort of hash map or dictionary, but then I wouldn't know when a camera stops rendering. Like, I'm almost thinking the best thing is actually to recalculate it every frame, but then if the frame rate is like 1,000, then that's way too fast. Man, it's just an Steam support ticket. I hope I get it back. I feel super stupid for what I did. I hope you get it back too. Like, there's so many people that run into that though, so I feel like they probably have some procedure for dealing with it. Making post-processing volumetric. Yeah, it's like, this is a feature that was in like Unreal Engine and stuff first. You create like this area where when you go in it, it'll set certain settings like exposure or ambient lighting, and then I'm also going to do custom properties. So like, could do maybe how much bloom there is in an area or something like that. It's more just trying to make it customizable, so if I add stuff later on. So if I added a component to these cameras when I did this, I would be doing get component each render call, which I don't think would be that slow. And then I could track each of the properties. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna add a class. Cartoon render properties. And I'm also gonna need a class to store the custom variables anyways, so it makes sense. Wait. Does render have access to delta time? Hold on. What if we do debug.log time. I think this should work. No, it's broken. Oh wait, maybe not. Let's see what happens when we go into game. Trying to read input. We've switched active input to It's outputting 0. I want to tell you when you're making that terrain with instancing I was talking about. Instancing does not do culling, its main downside. Today morning I remember why I know it. I feel like that's actually an unknown thing. A lot of people don't know that instancing hurts culling. So like there's that new Horizon Zero game that's like people are excited about. The original Horizon Zero Dawn, the developers posted this really nice visualization, I think it was on Twitter, showing their frustum culling where it had the player looking through the scene. Oh my god, okay, I want to see if I can find this video. And it basically enabled and disabled the things in the view cone. Yeah, here it is. Showing the culling in the view zone. And like, what's actually really good about this is, so it's like it looks choppy how stuff isn't being completely disabled outside the view, but the way it's doing it in massive chunks is actually really good because it means it can instance things in large areas and do the culling. So like, the really amazing part of this system isn't just that it's like doing the culling, but it's doing the culling and the instancing in this really nice combined chunk system. It's like actually really nice for an engine. Last year I was looking about instancing at Vulkan. Vulkan does not support instancing. Reason is they have very large page from Vulkan devs around it. That's weird. I would think you could do instancing yourself in Vulkan, since it's so low level. Why is this outputting 0 delta time? There's no way that Unity doesn't expect you to access delta time. In render pipeline dot render. Total time since last frame. Huh. C# float to string all decimal places. How do I do it with no formatting? Put 1.0 divided by that should actually show me if it's any small values. Infinity. Yep, nope, delta time actually isn't set. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, Unity? You did not set delta time in camera.render. The function that needs that would most likely need the render delta time, they haven't set delta time. I actually can't believe some of the bugs in this engine. Like, I'm a pretty big fan of Unity, but this is fucking ridiculous. Time.delta time is 0 in the rendering call. Delta time, which is supposed to be the rendering delta time since the last frame, isn't set in rendering. I can't believe it. I actually can't believe it. I guess I could use... I could maybe use rendered frame count. Told you delta can be 0 or even negative and expected in most engines. Why didn't 1 divided by delta to get FPS isn't safe? Then it's not actual delta time though. Like, the fact is that rendering frames here takes a non-zero amount of time. So it's like if it is 0, it's actually just wrong. Which could actually be 0 due to computer like timing errors. But even then, it's still not a right value. And so that still doesn't make sense either, because eventually it should be not 0. Because eventually time has to actually pass and tick. And this is just 0. And so this is the other thing. This is why I know it's bugged. Because in the editor, it's actually giving me somewhat sane delta values. Delta values of 1 after I haven't moved the screen for like a second. It caps delta time at 1. But then in the actual game view where it's like 1000 FPS, you can see it's just 0. It's just always 0. It's never not 0. When it should at least be like it's literally like time isn't passing. You're trying to read input using Unity engine input class at multiple display utilities, get position. Man, Unity sucks. Their engine is a fucking mess. If delta time is negative, then there's something about your timing measurement that is legitimately bugged. Because if you call like current system time in milliseconds and you measure it as like a million, and then you call that and it's like 999, it's like 999,000 and it's actually gone back in time, that is literally a bug. That just means your whole computer system clock is bugged. And if that happened, your whole operating system would probably crash. Because so many things in your operating system, like measuring your CPU frequency, are based off how many of those ticks go by. This is how it work. I don't think so. Like, if you ask the operating system to tell you what the current system time is, in WASM, delta is negative for first frames. How does that work though? Like in WASM, when you call the JavaScript date now function, it's actually getting the operating system time. Like the UTC time. And that's like fixed. Like if that changes, like as far as I'm aware, you can't change that at runtime. You have to go into your BIOS. And like the closest thing I can think of to delta being negative is like cheat engine speed hacks, where you actually do change the operating system's date values to return like later values or not evolve as quickly. And even then, it actually specifically is programmed not to go backwards in time, because games can very easily then detect that you're a speed hacker or whatever. So it's like in the one case I can think of where you actually specifically modify operating system timer functions to hack in games, it's specifically programmed not to go to negative time because it gets you banned and it's obvious. I really don't think that's happening then in like an actual like official virtual machine like WASM. Alright, well this works. Wait, no it doesn't. It's returning the exact same time value. What? What? Unity time dot unscaled time is not changing in custom render pipeline. This is nuts. This is actually nuts. There's no way that Unity forgot to set the time values during this. Like, this is just crazy. There's literally broken timing measurement. And the thing that drives me nuts is it sometimes works and then at other times isn't measuring the right time. It doesn't make sense. Time.unscaled time does not increase frame to frame. Confirmed bug. Holy shit. Oh my god. So this seems like such a little thing. Time not increasing. But considering whole game, like the whole fucking logic of the engine is built off the concept of delta time. And the game's time evolving. So does this mean time.time is actually going to work, but time.time isn't what I need? Because I actually need unscaled time to measure this correctly? Oh my god, time.time isn't going either. Time.time is 0! What? This is fucked, dude. There's no way. I test when I did, in my case delta was negative because WSM unrolled code and my logic was implemented. WSM put copy of main loop before actual main loop in the first launch, this copy once before main loop, that loop and data was declared in first copy, somehow leak memory. That sounds completely broken. That sounds like the WSM compiler completely failed. But in 2021 web build of Godot returned -0 for delta in first 3 frames. Damn. This is legitimately, so when I started doing Unity development again, probably like 2 or 3 months ago, I ended up going and starting working on my own engine again because I got so upset at the state of Unity. I actually feel like I'm going to do that again. Because I'm like, if delta time doesn't even work here, like, it's gonna cause so many issues. Like, let me look at the documentation here. Does it say in the documentation that you can't use time.time? This value is undefined during awake messages and starts after all these messages are finished. The value does not update if the editor is paused. Wow. So it just straight up doesn't work. So wait. What about real time since startup? Is that one good? Please work. Please work. Okay, it works in the editor. Oh my god, it works in the game. Thank God. Thank God. The lack of documentation in this shit is mind-boggling. Like, the reason why I consider Unity to be so good is because it has this giant manual and all these things that you can use. But then if it doesn't tell you that you can't actually use time.time and render pipeline render, and you spend an hour trying to figure out why time doesn't change, oh my god. It's just like so disappointing spending so much time on a little thing like getting delta time working correctly when it's a big engine like Unity where you know they have hired people to handle this stuff. So now that I finally figured out how to access the time, we can do the volume polling. It just it really scares me when I like running into something like this where time.delta time doesn't work, something that's so crucial to the engine, and it just doesn't work. And it makes me go like, am I gonna get hours into developing something in Unity and I'm gonna run into something else like that where just some other variable just doesn't work and I can't do anything because it's Unity. It's not my, like, can't go in and change Unity's engine source code. I did this same thing, like I said, a few months ago. I went to start developing some stuff in Unity again and was just like, the universal render pipeline is a disaster. Had so many issues trying to make shaders and figure out how parts of the new API worked, and getting tons of things like errors in the console when you run the game that you can't do anything to solve because Unity's just literally has an error somewhere in their code, an exception somewhere in their code. This seems like, oh, my game still works, but it's all these little things like, oh, the depth buffer isn't working when I do the actual rendering in the render pipeline, but it works in a render texture. I guess I can work around that, but at the same time it's like fundamental shit isn't working, which is horrible when games are such big things. Hold on, my Visual Studio isn't updating for whatever reason. Cartoon render properties. Did I not write like the right namespace or something? Well, I guess IntelliSense just all of a sudden decided not to update. Man, I program shaders and a bunch of stuff without any autofill or any checking like this. So I can still write code like this, but it just drives me nuts that it's like marking shit as wrong when it's not wrong. Oh man. And like there's a way to fix this too, but it's like it's all these little things of like, do I want to spend hours and hours finicking with Unity when it's like I don't feel like the engine's getting better. I feel like if I invest my time in this engine, in 3 years it's going to be even more bloated and even more of a pile of shit, even less documented. So it's like spending this time finicking with all these little things that just waste your time when an engine could just be a way smoother experience. Yeah, hold on, I'm gonna try to fix this. I think if I restart Visual Studio, it'll do it. Reload the project. It there's new errors. It made it worse. Okay, wait. Oh my god, it's fixed. Oh my god. It's this stuff though. Like spending 2 minutes just waiting for for Unity to compile one line of code. You make one line change in code and it takes Unity like fucking a minute to load that shit in. In JavaScript, my workflow is actually so much quicker. It's like you make a change, it's loaded in 5 seconds later. Unity do the same like Google. They develop products for corporations. Corporations request processed first, and corporations also have access to additional info and help from Unity. This is why Python is better. Yeah, like, I don't know. I find Python to be a pretty big mess in the sense that you get a bunch of conflicts between different Python versions. Like, I mean, Python is pretty good about you having multiple versions on your computer, but at the same time, it's like you download something and it's like, oh yeah, I have Python. And it's like, no, you need this old Python 5. You've got Python 7. Sorry, bud. That's the one thing I do like about JavaScript. It's like, oh, you've got a web browser? Well, it's using JavaScript from 2010, but that shit still works. Exposure, ambient light. For custom. Almost every AI slash neural network I tried need very specific versions of libs and sometimes 2 or 3 Python versions like latest Python 2 and 2 selected Python 3 to make AI work. Yep. Yeah. That's the way it goes. That sounds exactly like what I'm talking about, or what I talked about. Alright, so then we need different weights. So I have different weights depending on... So I got exposure weight, ambient weight. I think maybe I should just do 1 weight per volume. So that an exposure and ambient are weighted the same amount. Yeah, it makes it so much easier. Oh, wait. In C sharp, I think for each is actually faster. I believe I read somewhere that this is actually faster when you're using lists. More than 2 times cheaper. Oh, okay, yeah, never mind. It was its opposite. Alright, for each is worse. Never mind. So this scares me though, how I said I can't access time.delta time here. This almost makes me think that this is running in a separate thread and I'm not going to be able to access Unity transforms here. I'm really hoping I can, but I worry that... See, the fact that it feeds you an array of Unity camera objects makes you think, I can access Unity objects here, right? I hope. Alright, so we need to take the position of the camera here, convert it relative to this volume, and then since we're going to be using the matrix, I think I'm going to have to basically do what I did here and actually convert the attenuation to like a scale relative to the matrix, because the matrix will have like skew and stuff, so I'll actually have to scale the attenuation based on the local scale. Oh, so this isn't added. So I'm going to debug the attenuation for this and the positioning. That's weird, it's not being called. Weird. It's not being called in the game, it's being called in the scene view. What? So it's working in the scene view, but in the game view it's not. In the game view where it actually matters. I wonder what it is. I wonder if it's because the same camera's being rendered for the scene view. Oh my god, it's using the same one for the scene and the game camera. Which means that it updates the pull time for the scene camera. Oh my god, I actually don't think there's a way to do this. So there's no way for you to tell which one of these cameras is the scene. So like here, it's calling it, but it's calling it for the scene camera. I actually don't get this. So it's going to say polling main camera. Oh, polling scene camera. So it's not calling this. Wait. Okay, so it is calling rendering main camera. So let's compare the pull times. I think it might be using the same properties class, so then the pull time doesn't get written correctly. What? How does last pull time get set to 1000? What? Oh my god, it's because of the scene. Wait. I legitimately don't understand. How is this set to 10,000? I could try resetting real time since startup here. Interesting, so it's not pulling the scene camera either. Or is it? No, it's not polling. It's actually not. Get component, add component. Even pull delay. I legitimately think this is broken. So it shouldn't update last pull time. This shouldn't be set. Unless it's like, I actually think it's sharing a component between the scene camera and the main camera. So you can see it's polling it once. And then there's actually like a delay, like a 1 second delay. Yeah, nearly a 0.1 second delay, which is basically the time it needs to do. Yeah, so it's not updating, and then here it updates, and it doesn't trigger polling. What? So when this sets the new last poll time, unless I'm setting this, no, I'm not setting this anywhere else. The only time it could set it is when it does add component, or when it does enabling properties, and it hasn't set enabling properties anywhere. Legitimately doesn't make sense. Oh my god, it's collapsing? Oh my god. It is polling. It's just collapse under the console was enabled. And I thought it was disabled because I disable it every time. Or I try to. Oh my god. So let's see if we can pull the main camera now. Yeah, it set it to 1,000. Oh my god. So is the real time since startup here? Yeah, there is something going on. Like, I actually think that this render function is happening in a different thread or something. Because it doesn't make sense how I'm getting all these timing errors where timing is inconsistent between the mono behaviors and the rendering thread, unless they're actually in separate threads. But Unity says nothing about them being in separate threads. Ah! Ah! I don't get it. I legitimately don't get what they were going for with this custom scriptable render pipeline system. Because, like, the whole idea is supposed to be so that people can add custom things, right? But then if there's no way to actually track data between cameras because components are somehow, like, shared in the editor, it actually doesn't make sense. Well, it actually makes sense why they jump through so many hoops and have so many bugs in the universal render pipeline, because I think they literally designed an API that doesn't function. Like, it doesn't do its job of being a custom render pipeline, but then now Unity devs have to work with this monster they've created. Now they have to program the universal render pipeline and HD render pipeline in this API they've made. Why is the real time since startup 10,000 or 1,000? Why? Why is it getting set to that? And if it is, why isn't it registering right here? Maybe they just work on new render logic already. The HD render pipeline is supposed to be that. So when I click enable, it doesn't enable the game camera. It does initialize the time. Okay. Okay. It's actually working. It's actually working. Just for some reason, it doesn't automatically enable the game view because of this error, which is triggering the hell out of me. It actually seems like Unity, the engine itself, is broken. Play doesn't switch to game view. I think this error right here when I press play is the cause of this. You can switch it to scene view like this only if there are exceptions. Immediately getting an error when I start my game. And right there in the debug manager class I found this. Given that this is an engine file and no one I made myself. Are you kidding me? Is this the one? Multiple, no, mine is multiple display utilities. This is my thing though. This has been my experience with the with these latest versions of Unity. Literally working through bugs that the Unity devs have created themselves. And that just drives me absolutely crazy because that's the whole reason you're supposed to use Unity is because things are already done and packaged for you. Oh my god, it literally uses input.mouse position. The Unity devs don't know how their own engine works. So input.mouse position is the old input system. They've now moved to this new input system, where I'm guessing if I disable this new input system, the error will go away, except you're supposed to use the new input system because it has rebindable stuff and it has way more things. Oh my god. Is there a way to turn off this exception? I swear to god, there has to be a way to make it so that it doesn't close the play area when you get an error. You need to make you look so stressed. This is the crazy thing to me, is like, to me, engine development, like me making my own JavaScript engine, is supposed to be way more stressful, but me trying to figure out this fucking engine of me trying to figure out what the Unity devs have done here is like so much more. It's ridiculous. So what I'm looking for is an option so that it doesn't stop play mode when there's an error. Because Unity itself has an exception. Unity stop exiting play mode on exception. This is nuts to me. Like, you go and you run the game and it literally doesn't run because the Unity devs have an error in their own code and they programmed the engine to automatically exit play mode when an exception happens, a bad exception like this. So you literally can't run the game because of an error in Unity devs code. Actually so dumb. Like, alright, it's still buggy, but at least it's like, it's working. It almost makes me think I might just want to not use Unity's new input system because apparently they can't write code anymore that doesn't have bugs. Like, this is also what I've said, like, the stress doesn't just come from the errors I'm running into now. It's like having delta time not work here when I don't really need delta time is like, okay, I can work around that. But like, delta time being 0 and not working is literally like a major bug. And like, all these things of like the engine literally just not functioning how it's supposed to is so bad. Like, if you're relying on this, is like, doesn't AAA, like AAA, doesn't that mean high quality? And like, doesn't high quality mean it works? Like, I feel so, it seems so ridiculous to say like isn't high quality like the lack of bugs and things working smoothly, whereas like it almost seems like now high quality is like who can create the best tech demo. Like Unity or Unreal Engine doing this competition of like these ray traced demo scenes when the base fucking engine doesn't work and people are sitting for like 10 minutes recompiling scripts because they have such an inefficient system. Discovering engine features is stressful, especially when it does not work as expected. That's what I'm saying. Like, my experience previously has been like in Unity 5, exploring engine features is like pretty fun because it worked. And now I'm exploring engine features, and like a scary amount of these engine features are undocumented and don't really work. Like, that is actually scary if you're building a game off this engine. And like the other scary thing is, like, I find these posts by like the Oscar Stalberg and other people who I think are like awesome developers, and they're talking about these serious issues in Unity, and people are going like, "Oh, you must be wrong." No, no. Unity could never be wrong. It's never Unity developers' fault. Mizas. Mizas. I like that name. It's a good emote too. I'm seriously considering going and doing my own engine again. Let me find if there's a way to not close. During an exception. That's so weird. So I guess it was just your chat on stream does not support animated emotes. Oh, you're right. It doesn't. Huh. I didn't notice that. Good point. I wonder if that's for lag. It could also be because animated emotes are just new. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any option for doesn't seem like there's any options for animated emotes. Huh. What is this icon here? That blue and gray icon, it doesn't look very good. I haven't seen it before. I guess it's the input system. See, I thought it was the event system, but it disappears when it's not selected. I guess it is the input system. I don't get some of Unity's design choices. Okay, wait. I don't get a lot of Unity's new design choices. Maybe if they documented some of their new stuff, I actually would. Man, that took so long just to actually have the game run properly. I'm just like... When you like have a plan to develop something and all of a sudden you just get like stopped trying to figure out for 30 minutes why Unity is telling you that the real time since startup is 1050 when it's measuring as 44 before that, is just like, it just completely ruins the flow of development. Drop and develop something else. That's what I'm almost saying though, like doing your own engine, at least you can keep a flow going. I did work on this little JavaScript game. It's like, if anyone's seen the website Human Benchmark, it's basically a shitty version of that, but just for your own stats. But now I'm not even motivated to do this because I just made this really quickly and then was like, well, I guess I'm done with this now. But there are still a few more things I want to add to this. I had this like fractal prediction where you predict what comes next in a series of fractals. And it's like, so I do have some different ones that aren't in the normal benchmark programs like this. CAPTCHA idea? Yeah, I don't know if this actually could be a CAPTCHA idea now that you mention that. But I think you could train a neural network pretty easily to do the pattern detection here. Like it's not that difficult, especially once you like get the pattern down. Oh, those are two hearts. But yeah, that's like for this case it's just the largest shape, so not even neural network needed. Yeah, could just do like I don't know. It is an evolving fractal, so I do feel like you would need some sort of pattern detection. Hold on, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Oh man, this is really conflicting. I am I am not feeling Unity. Unity the engine, like, oh my god. It's just like trying to understand the new APIs when there's such little documentation. It's like damaging my trust in the engine. It's like I'm just like, it makes me reevaluate and go through the pros and cons of why I'm even using Unity when I have to spend all this time trying to figure out what's wrong with the engine. I think we're gonna go have lunch and I'll think about this and see. The thing is, I did this, I had this exact same thing happen before where it was just like going through Unity's documentation and things still not working and going like eventually pushing me to work on my own engine, and it's like I feel like at this point I almost should just go work on my own engine because like it doesn't seem like Unity's getting any better. All right, I'll probably be back this afternoon, do more development. I'll see you around. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching me struggle with Unity. Thank you for watching. I will see you around.